Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Keaty. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Hey there, Empire Builders. We are excited to have you back with Kimber and Seychelle for an exciting episode. We don't often have guests. We certainly don't often have male guests. We are excited to have the one and only Jason Abrams with us today, who is, I think, our second ever male guest on the Empire Building podcast. So welcome, Jason. We are excited to have you here with us today.
It is an honor to be here. I'm a huge fan of the show. I'm nervous. I'm just gonna tell you, Seychelle, Kimber, I'm nervous because I'm a big fan, but I'm gonna do the best I can.
I'm so excited. You've been on our list for a long time, and so I'm so pumped that our schedules have aligned for us to be able to get you, because often you are the host of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast, in addition to many, many other things that we'll get into in a moment. But you often get to sit in the seat of the interviewer. And so Kimber and I are really excited today to get to flip the tables a little bit and get to learn more about you and for our audience to get to know you better today.
Yeah, you're like the Jopra of KW.
Yes!
I feel like you often are doing some incredible interviews.
Yeah.
And so we're excited to kind of be able to learn a little bit more about Jason, even before the world of real estate, and all the things that you've done post. Everything from, TV, reality TV, which most of us enjoy making fun of you about.
Yes. Well, my mom thought the show was great. So she was the only one, but she loved it.
I have seen a couple of your episodes. I thought it teed you up perfectly for what you're doing now. So if you think about it, it's really from TV to real estate titan of the industry, right? It kind of like works. It goes across. So I think that could be your new tagline.
This is great. To Titan of the industry.
Right? I know. I think that should be your new title. So
Done.
I'm just throwing it out there. We can float it around, kind of see how it feels.
Yes.
All right. Well, from your Michigan roots to this powerhouse executive as the head of industry for Keller Williams, Realty International. But take us back, the days of Michigan. I understand there was some, your mom was pretty instrumental in helping you get into the real estate journey. So walk us back there into Jason's early days and the entry into the real estate space.
She was. I was not academically gifted. Let's just say that. I graduated high school with a 1.8 GPA. So they don't let people like me be lawyers or doctors. We established that early on. So I did, though, have a gift of connecting with people, and I love people. And I was going to go into the sales world. I was actually going to sell ladies' shoes, which at the time sounded like the greatest job in the world, right? Hang out at the mall with ladies that need shoes. I'm in. And I was going to do that. I was really excited about it. And my mom, who has always seen more in me than anybody ever will, said, you should end up in the real estate business. You'd be so great at it. And I was really afraid. I said, I've never been a great test taker. There's a class involved. Then you have to get a C- at that time on the test to get the license. And I was like, that's a lot of reach for me. And she actually turned our house into Real Estate School Central. She was a teacher for 32 years. And on her summer vacation, she actually did it all with me. We went and we got a real estate license. I think she wanted to make sure I went to the class. And
Smart
I did.
Mom.
And I got the license. And even as we sit today, she's my biggest fan.
I love that. How did that shape your relationship with working with strong women?
That's such a great question. I don't know that it, quote unquote, formed it. I think having strong women in my life was just something from the jump street. I have a Jewish mother. So she was running the show at our house and it was fantastic. So I never had an issue with that. I did have an incredible experience when I started working at Keller Williams International, which is I went to a meeting and there was this brilliant woman in the room and I kind of did my thing. I went in and just did my thing. And she sat there really quietly. And then right after I finished, she said, don't worry, Jason, I won't let your confidence interrupt my expertise.
Oh.
And I just sat back and I was thinking, okay, this is a different place. I'm surrounded by these incredibly talented people that are all wildly successful and they're all experts in their field. And I completely checked myself and changed the way that I showed up in those meetings.
Wow. That's a really powerful lesson to pay attention to. A lot of people would have just breezed right over that and been like, what a jerk, or they don't know what they're talking about. And I love that you took a step back and actually said, hold on, what can I take away and learn from this?
That was life-changing for me. And it got, as I started working with this human more and more, she said something that I'm now passing on to my son. She said, it's not an opinion that women are going to mature faster than men will. Like, this is just something that happens.
It's fact.
So as you bring young people along on the journey, you should look up and say, listen, the girls in your life are maturing faster than you are, which means you should look to them for leadership and guidance starting at a very young age. And I took that and ran with it too.
Yeah, these are like gems already.
I know.
No surprise.
I know. Well,
Here we go.
this is only validating why we love you, Jason, and consider you a dear friend for a very long time for both of us. But I really think there is something to the importance of, like, in order to be a strong female in society and in business, it's actually imperative that we have confident, strong men that are equals alongside us as partners, leading also, because a fragile male ego cannot exist well with a strong, confident woman. It's not going to go well. And so I really appreciate you sharing that perspective, because I think we need more confident, grounded, learning-based, strong men out there like you, because that's how we as women actually will have our opportunity as well. It's not taking away from anybody else, but it's being around someone like you that allows us all to thrive better.
Well, yeah. It also, by the way, for the guys out there who are listening that are like, really? Yeah, really. Like, if you want to accomplish your goals and make more money and have the biggest life you can have, then these ideals have to become part of it. There's a great book on this called Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders and What to Do About It. Don't get triggered by the title, gentlemen. It's pithy. But it makes the argument that a lot of the personality traits that we give to leadership, confidence, gregarious, on and on and
Aggressiveness,
on. Aggressiveness are the exact opposite of what you'd actually want in a leader. And the challenge with it, when you look up at corporate America anyway, is that those exact traits that you would try to dissuade in a leadership room are actually the ones that are rewarded. And so the smart business owner wakes up and makes a list of all the things they don't want to show up in their company, then goes out and finds the people that exemplify the opposite.
Say that title again. I mean, even though the title's a little, just so people can grab.
She just wants me to say it again.
I'm like, say it one more time.
Why do so many incompetent men become leaders, and what to do about it?
I love it. You're probably one of the people, Jason, right, who always has like a good book, a podcast, a person to be able to reference. Like, you are probably one of the most like avid readers that I know. How do you think about that? Like, right, how do you pick your books? What are you focusing on? What's the discipline that you have around that? Because you're just kind of taking it all in all the time.
So I have this thing, and some of your listeners may have it as well. If I read for more than like 15 or 20 minutes, forget about it. I'm falling asleep. I'm just not going to retain it, and oftentimes I literally will fall asleep. So what I do is I read the last 15 minutes of every hour. So I don't schedule hour meetings for the most part. I do a 45-minute meeting, and then I read for the last 15 minutes. And so my day is broken up with these 15-minute reading sections. And
I love that.
It really works well for me. I don't necessarily read to assimilate new ideas at scale. I'm reading to solve specific problems. You ever know those people, and no one out there driving, raise your hand because you're driving. But you know those people who have read every single book on leadership, but they can't lead themselves out of a paper bag?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Absolutely.
And you look up and you're like, okay, you're not actually reading to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
You're more of like an intellectual tourist. Don't get triggered. That's okay. I'm a tourist when I travel, and I love it. And so if you read for pleasure and that's intellectual tourism for you, I love that. But if you actually want to see changes in your life, you have to read for purpose. And the way that I do it is at any given time, I can tell you what my biggest challenge in work life and personal life is. And then I will read until I have a model by which I think I can solve that problem. Then I very rarely continue to read on that topic. I skim the new stuff that comes out to see if there's any sort of like newfangled research that would change the model. Gary Keller taught me that way of thinking about it, and it served me very well. So I have a real eclectic bookshelf, but it didn't happen by happenstance. It happened topically.
All right, so what are you doing right now? What problem are we solving for right now?
It's a great question. So right now, I'm trying to strengthen my communication skills at scale. And so I am in deep study on how great leaders talk to people in order to make them feel topics as opposed to just understand them.
That's a good one. Well, especially today, because you're talking to people in very different ways, right? Not always at a table, not always in an office, but sometimes like right through different like video mediums, different channels, and you've got to communicate messages in very different ways than what we saw a decade ago.
I went to a meeting a couple of months ago. This is how I got onto this topic. And I was presenting an idea. And someone in the room used this old adage and said, you don't lead by setting a fire under someone, you lead by setting a fire within them. This person was saying it to knock me down, which tells you more about them than me. But I actually laughed and took it to heart. And I said, okay, that's a fair point. If you were actually saying it to better me, then it's a really fair point. So how did the great leaders inspire people to go do incredible things? Because in the end, there's only two ways to lead, either by edict or influence. Edict means that you have the ability to make people do something by rule setting. Influence is a much longer road, but I find it more rewarding, which is what are the words I can say to move people into action faster with me than without me? And how do I master that at scale?
I love that. And you're right. We always talk about people, 90% of people move away from fear, right? 10% of people move towards pleasure. And I think that that's a great example of a different way of looking at leadership and influence is when somebody understands how something can relate to them, how it impacts them directly versus a rule, a standard, something, right? They're far more likely not only to follow whatever the leadership is going after, but they're far more willing to be motivated by it, excited about it, and bought in as a culture. And it becomes a team instead of a group all working towards the same goal.
I think that's spot on. The challenge for all of us, especially those of us trying to lead families or lead organizations, is that in the absence of true leadership, people listen to whoever is speaking loudest.
Yeah.
And you look up, and that's how I understand every time people are led astray.
That's really awesome.
When you talked earlier, like about this, we've done a couple episodes on masculine and feminine leadership styles, and like that idea of like, right, this feminine style of leadership that can look weaker because it's more collaborative, because it's more consultative, because it is, right, more relational sometimes, and yet it is, I think as you're hitting on this, like this idea of like bringing people along, building the team, building capacity, right? We talk a lot about leverage, but it's actually about leverage is leading people to be able to lead themselves and therefore lead their teams. So I think that's powerful. All right, is there a book around that you've dug into already that you also want to drop for our listeners?
There's so many. If you're going to go, if that's what you're struggling with too, I mean, you can never go wrong with Phil Jones' Exactly What to Say. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a great one called Impro, which makes the argument that all sales and all communication is based on improv, and so master those skills. There's another great one called What Would the Leader Say? And it goes back all the way through history and documents some of the great presidential speeches and how the ones worked and didn't. There's an infinite number of books on words I'm finding.
Well, apparently people have things to say, so that's fair. I do have a question for you around this, because you made a very strategic decision to leave the entrepreneurial space and move into the intrapreneurial space. And I'm an intrapreneur myself. I chose to leave the advertising world and come work with my mom in the real estate space. And then we have intrapreneurially built things together since then. Tell me a little bit about like what that journey was like for you to make this decision to move to Austin, to like uproot, what you were doing before in order to be where you are now.
Your question, it's a false premise. The idea that I made a very purposeful decision. I wish I could tell you I did.
Yep.
That wouldn't be the case.
Honesty is the best policy,
Yes,
Jason. I love it.
I think that in my life anyway, people tend to follow other people. And I had always had Gary Keller as a mentor and as a coach, and I had been kind of doing my thing. And since my mid-20s, he's been a big part of my life. And so when the opportunity showed up to work closer with him, I can't tell you that I weighed the pros and cons. I can't tell you that I thought about the difference between being a business owner and a W-2 employee. I can't even tell you that I thought much about the difference of picking up and moving. And I can tell you this, that I felt the opportunity in my soul. And that was all I needed.
And you haven't looked back, right? Like
I look back constantly. I look back all the time. I think anyone that says they don't is trying to sell you something.
You're like, huh.
Here's what I believe, and it's either going to turn people off or turn them on. And either way, you're right. But I believe that everybody is born with a divine soul. And I truly believe that all of the wisdom that you need in the world is in this soul. The problem is it's locked up. And so there's this idea of knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge being all the things that I learn when I read a book, or all the things I learn when I take a class, or all the things I learn when I listen to your podcast. I get smarter. Wisdom is this thing that's innately there. And so I think the journey of life is to travel around and unlock these hidden pieces of wisdom that are already within you. And some of you that are out there can think about how this has shown up in your life. You might call it intuition. You just know the answer. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. You have this deep-seated wisdom. That means that the journey of life is about finding locksmiths who can unlock these pieces of you. And you know it when you hear it because you sit in a room and you hear somebody and you feel what they're saying to the extent where all of a sudden your wisdom becomes unlocked in that category. Most people say, I went and I heard Gary speak or Tony Robbins speak, and I had this amazing insight. It's actually the wrong word. Insight would mean from within, insight, inside sight, a sight from within. I think of them more as outsights. And when you find somebody who speaks to your soul and gives you outsights that unlock pieces of you, you are on the path to enlightenment. And for me, Gary had always been that person. I would sit in masterminds and I'd leave and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I see the world different. I would hear him on stage and I'd say, I never thought of it that way. And here's what I'll tell you. If you look around at your life right now and you don't have any locksmiths, you should have permission to outgrow those relationships and go find people that unlock pieces of you. Because once you find them,
it's hard to put yourself back in the box.
Life becomes really beautiful really fast.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is one of those pieces that you're most grateful has been unlocked, a lesson in that?
Watching him demonstrate love for the people closest to him. I can tell you that the definition that he has of love and the way that he shows up for his wife and the way that she shows up for his grandchildren. And some of you are saying, yeah, of course, he loves them. Well, I know a lot of people that don't show up that way. And this idea of love that permeates almost everything that he does, even when he's disappointed in you, is very special. And I guess it's a little odd. I guess I'm kind of learning how to love at work. And I'm trying to take that home.
Ooh, I really, really adore that. When Gary went through a loss of someone very close to him a couple of years ago, my dad was in his final stages of Parkinson's, and I had a 30-minute conversation with Gary just around life and loss and grief and all of those things. And he said to me, he said, say, at the end of the day, so what I have learned through my experience with family and love and work and all of those things is at the end, all there is for any of us is love. That's all that's left. And he said, so for me, I have learned that I have to let go, I have to release, and I have to look at everything through the lens of, at the end of my life, if there's nothing else left and all there is love, how would I approach this situation? And it was one of those moments where I was like, absolutely, that's kind of obvious, but also it's really profound. And it's much harder to model sometimes.
Yes.
than it is to say.
Yes.
And I feel like he really works very hard to walk that walk while also being able to say that, in a room. So I love that you're seeing that modeled up close and personal with him.
It's such a gift. I look up today and I'm clear that birds were made to fly, fish were made to swim, and people were made to give and receive love. And when you lose sight of that, or you don't have a model on how to do it, or you don't even have any pretense in how to do the activities, you just end up going through life. And the relationships you keep are the ones you keep, and the ones you lose are the ones you lose. And I think that could lead to an awful lot of regret. And I'm trying to avoid that.
Yes. Well, let's talk more about that, because I think that we've all, had a gift of watching Gary demonstrate that love to a company, to a family. And one of the things that as women, we get asked a lot, and we're going to ask you, is this question of how do you do it all, Jason, right? You're an incredible dad, you're an executive, right? How do you do it? How do you balance all these amazing things?
I don't.
It's a false premise, right?
I
don't.
Yeah,
none of us do.
I really don't. I mean, I'm a deeply flawed human.
We all are, and if they say they're not, they're lying.
I'm not judging, and I don't feel judged, but I am self-aware. I'm a deeply flawed human. I've wrestled with the amount of hours that I've spent at work as opposed to at home. I traveled 300 days a year for a decade. I've left little pieces of myself and my spirit all over. I've sold homes on 4 continents and left pieces of me on each one. And I can sit back today and I can tell you this. The past has very little influence over the future unless you allow it to. And I wake up every day today as a journeyer, which is I know that I'm out of balance. But I also am, for the first time in my life, aware that that's a choice. And I think that what makes us divinely human is the ability to choose. The problem is most of us forget that we have the option to choose on a daily basis all the things that we have. The world conspires to keep you moving forward in the choices that you make. It becomes this natural inertia of itself. The minute you wake up and realize everything is a choice and I get to make it, is the day that you become wildly overwhelmed with the number of choices you have. That's just natural. And so what the brain does is it tries to get you to forget very quickly that you have the ability to choose. It's trying to protect you. Today, I'm still wildly out of balance. I'm cognizant that I'm making the choice, and I'm simply at the stage of documenting the moments by which I'm choosing. And I'm trying to do it without judgment. So the days that I choose to work late and not go see my son, I'm documenting that and trying to remember that I chose it. And then looking at it and without judgment and without scope and simply just sitting in that feeling. And for me, over a long enough period of time, that has started to change the choices I'm making.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I mean, we talk a lot about the why, right? Like, but what is pushing people? And it's often this idea of like, well, I want to get to freedom. I want to get to the place where I get the gift of making the choice. And I think what you're saying that's so powerful is like this awareness that actually that in of itself is a choice. This idea that you somehow don't have agency in it when in fact you do, right? It's not that you have to wait until your business is so big or that the empire to do the next thing. You actually have a choice to do it. And I think that that's just a very powerful nugget to think about. Like, no, actually, in every moment, you're getting to decide what your life looks like.
I think the reason that people say like they're trying to get to freedom, they're actually saying something different, which is I'm trying to create enough passive income to live the way that I want to live in order to deem that as freedom.
Yes.
The false pretense there is that that has anything to do with the amount of time you spend building it. I was sitting with a mega agent the other day. We were interviewing, and her husband has been stricken with cancer. And although he's in remission at the moment, he's going to die from this, and it won't be a very long life. It will have been incredibly rewarding, and he's an incredible human. And I said, well, what did you learn from this? And she said to me, she said, I don't know what the hell I was waiting so long for to hire a CEO. I don't know why I was waiting so long to hire a CFO. We kept saying we were going to buy a ranch when. I don't know why we didn't just buy one. We wanted to travel, and we were planning all these trips for when we retire. And when he got sick, I hired the CEO, I hired the CFO, we bought the ranch, and we've been to Paris 4 times in the last year. And I said, so what's the aha? She said, the only thing that was waiting for life was me. Life was there the whole time.
Yeah, Paris was always there.
And my head exploded when she said it. It was such wisdom.
Okay, so this leads me to a question on the personal side. As a father, right, with an amazing son, Jack, what do you want to leave for him? What impact do you want to leave?
That's such a great question. I wish I had a more complete answer. But I can assure all your audience I'm journeying and I'm trying to figure it out.
That's part of the journey, yeah.
But I think I just want him to wake up with a sense and understanding that he's perfect just the way he is. Because I remember 0 through 18 of my life, the feedback that I was getting from all the institutions built to give us feedback was very negative. None of my skill set was rewarded in academia. I mean, I was voted most likely not to achieve. That was really hard. I don't even know why a school would have that as a column, but I guess it's tongue in cheek. And I remember having a real struggle with self-esteem and self-worth. And I managed to cover that up with early success, but all of those wounds were still there. And so if he could wake up every day knowing that he's perfect the way that he's been created and finding a space where he feels fulfilled, whether that leads to great riches or not, I think I'd feel really good about it.
I love that you use the word fulfillment in there too.
Yeah, the challenge is, at least for me, that exuberance is wasted on the youth and perspective is wasted on the old.
Completely agree.
100%.
Because if he's anything like me, which he is, no matter what I tell him, he's like, yeah, whatever. Credit doesn't matter, Dad. I'm good.
You're like, can we just document what I'm saying so later when you think I'm smart, you can. Okay, dad hack. I actually, and you may have already done this because you're always way ahead, but like I started an email address for Quinn that she doesn't know about yet, that I just am sending her like little things of wisdom that maybe someday she'll actually use. Like, because right now I'm not super cool or smart, but one day I might be, and these might be, and I'm using them in stories of her, so maybe she'll want to read it more. But my hope is maybe one day she'll go back and be like, oh, actually, Mom was pretty smart.
I love it. I started a video library.
I loved that.
I read it in this book about legacy, and the idea was that you would compile. After you did all your estate planning, you would then ask the question, what's the cultural estate that I want to leave? You know, so many times you think about how you're going to divide money and assets and all this stuff, but what's the cultural estate? And this led you down this road of listing the ideas and the skills that you hold to be good and true when it comes to being a cultural human in the ecosystem, and then making a video for each one. So I kind of attacked it like I would write a video course. And who knows, one day maybe
I think that's great. You know, and actually it's the number one piece of advice I give anyone that's dealing with a family member with a terminal illness is I'm like, you want to take pictures with them, you want to do all this. I'm like, you want audio of their voice. That's actually the one thing you can't go back and get. And so I'm always like, go whenever you're with them, I don't care if they're diminished and don't have the voice they used to, record it. Like just set that phone up, set a video up, and just record whatever it is, because that's the kind of stuff you want to go back and have. So I love that you're mindful about that, because those are the things we can't go back and capture later. So I love that you're putting thought and intention into that now.
When we might have a video that you're going to have to add to this if it's not already in there, because during COVID, folks might not know, the Her Best Life World created this Man of the Year competition, right? Like it was a difficult time, and we were like, all right, everyone's home.
We need some joy.
What's going on?
We need joy.
We need some joy. We need some entertainment. And Jason, you were gracious enough to throw your hat in the ring, and now this whole connection to like women's shoes totally makes sense.
Yes.
Just for the audience out there, one of them was wear high heels, and I went with 6-inch stiletto pads.
You did. They were spectacular, and you rocked them.
And if that's right. If that's not in Jack's video library, it should be.
Yes.
But it definitely gave us a little peek.
We probably have it somewhere if you would like it to add.
I have it. And better fact, I still have a pair of size 11 red bottoms patents in my closet.
Amazing.
Well, it did give us, though, a look behind the curtain, right? Of sort of that creative. I think Jack even makes a cameo, like throwing me the football in one of the other competitions. Like, how do you continue in other ways, right, to tap into the creative side of Jason?
Now that he's a little older, he's leading me down that road. You know, Gary told me that if you chase your kids until they're 18, they'll spend the rest of their life chasing you. And so now, whatever he's into, I am wildly into it as well.
All in.
Now, if there's a downside to it, it's because I'm a lunatic and I'm pretty well funded at this point, and so we go overboard often, but we were having a hell of a good time doing it.
What's the most fun things that you two are into right now that you're getting to jump in with him on?
We do a lot of little guy trips, so we love that. He's into Fortnite right now, this video game.
I was going to say, I feel like this is a video game, YouTube, yep.
We just made the pilgrimage to the Fortnite World Championships where we sat in a stadium for 3 days. He got to meet all of the players.
His heroes and everything.
That is a microcosm of an ecosystem most of us will never see. That is an interesting group of humans.
Yes. Well, the idea of like being on YouTube and watching somebody else play a video game with 4 boys, I've been like, wait, what are we having fun doing right now?
Y'all, no idea over here.
I guess if there's a benefit to having a podcast that's had over 1 million views is that I was able to reach out to one of his heroes, who's a streamer, who's got, he's 19 years old, he's worth $30 million, he's got all these followers, and we were able to let Jack interview him a little bit and learn about what the life of that looks like. And you know what blew me away, and him too, is that the discipline that these streamers have. I mean, imagine for these guys, they go online and they play video games for 5 or 6 hours, but then they practice for 2 or 3 hours, and then they have business meetings around all of their apparel. He looked up and realized it was a 12-hour-a-day job and was like, I'm good on that. And so he went from, I'm going to be a YouTuber to, I don't know that I want to spend that much time to be a YouTuber. And I thought that was such an insight.
You're like, this is the best investment I have ever made. I mean,
yes.
And that's not to say anything against our YouTubers, but I think we all like to think that we want the results of all that hard work. And I think especially with YouTube, when you see a well-curated, very short clip, right, what we're really seeing is hundreds and thousands of hours of these guys and gals out there doing the hard work behind the scenes, but you really, really don't get to take it in the way of seeing everything that went into that. So I love that you actually got to peek behind the curtain on it.
I hear that all the time. When I used to represent athletes, people would come up to us and they would say, you have the best life. I'd do anything to be able to play in the NFL, or I do anything to be a pro golfer. Or, it's so bizarre to say. I got off stage the other day at an event and someone said, I want your job. I would do anything to have that job. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, no, you won't.
Because you could.
You'd have it if you were willing to do anything to have it. There's a great book called The Secret to Getting Everything You've Ever Wanted.
Yep.
And it lays out a very simple premise. The secret is being willing to do anything it takes to get it. And most people will say that they are, but when push comes to shove, they won't.
That's right. Well, I think that's also why we tell the stories of like when you're like, why would a top agent tell Jason everything that they did? Well, the answer is like most 99% of the people are not going to do what was required to get what they have because you could. And so I think one of the beauties for me of KW was that people are like, wait, agents tell you all their secrets? They'll literally give you the playbooks for what made them successful. And they're like, yeah, like we will.
You still have to go do it.
You have to go do it. You have to go do it.
That's one of the incredible things. So we wrote this playbook, which is a series of one-page models. More of those are bought from people outside of KW than inside of KW. And I think the reason for it is because inside of that company, people are sharing every day. Outside of it, they're like, they must have made a mistake and put this on sale to the public. Like, let's buy them all up right now so that no one realizes.
They don't take them. They don't
before they realize.
They like buy it and they run out of the store as if they're like getting away with something. And it's funny.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest lessons? I mean, you have literally interviewed some of the biggest names and brightest brains in the real estate industry and beyond. What are some of your biggest lessons that you've learned, whether in the podcast world, but also, I mean, you've been doing this for a while.
For me, there's three things that tie together almost every mega that we've interviewed. Number one, they are wildly unfragile. Like, these are people that can get beat up on a regular basis and keep coming back. And I think that they're all really clear, and I think they'd say that they're immovable objects within their markets and within their space. And so there's no quit in any of them. And that's the number one thing. You call it grit, call it anti-fragile,
resiliency,
call it toughness, resiliency. Yeah. These people, no matter what the market does, good. No matter what happens externally, good. No matter what happens internally, good. They're coming to work the next day. By the way, for better or worse. Mm-hmm. And it happens, I think, for two different reasons. One of them is often they're running from something, and the other group is running towards something. So I think of like a Cody Gibson who's running from the way that he was brought up. Cody, when he's 5 years old, his mom sits him and his brother down and says, I never wanted to be a mom. I don't really love y'all. Don't call me mom anymore. Call me Mrs. by my last name. And that is a little box called rejection to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Then rents out his room, and he has to go get a paper route to make enough money to rent a place in the house to live. And he goes through all these trials, and he wakes up every day, I truly believe, running from that poverty and running from that feeling. Then you have this other group, and Sarah Reynolds comes to mind because when you interview her, she talks about her childhood. It's this incredible idyllic thing filled with so much love and these incredible people that she's still in business with her mom today. And like, this is this beautiful thing. And she's running towards that feeling and wants to share it with everybody. So for one of these two reasons, they are unwilling to relent. Then the second one, they're all really clear on the one or two things that matter most in their business. That there might be 500 things this company does, but we're going to do these one or two things at an incredibly high level. I think of Sue Adler. We're going to do seller seminars, and it's going to be awesome. I think of Richard Stone. We are going to knock on doors 127 days a year. And I can keep going. They know the one thing that drives the business. And then the third one is they all know the very simple math associated with the business. They're all tracking one or two numbers that matter more than everything else. And if that number is wrong, hell or high water, they're going to get that number fixed. Those are the three things they all have in common.
Oh, I love that. I mean, you've done probably at this point, thousands of not just agents, right? Entrepreneurs.
We do over 1,000 interviews a year.
A year. Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible.
You're going to get really good when you have that much time on task.
Yeah.
You're going to get really good at it. And you interview your way to success. This idea that any of us are born with all of this information is a misnomer. And this idea that you're going to go figure it out on your own, I would tell everybody, creativity is kind of stupid. At the end of the day, someone's already doing it and having massive success. Go model that and then incrementally improve on top of it.
When you look at the next phase for you, you've had these really neat, interesting phases that you've gone through. When you look ahead to the next phase, right, because you said you can choose to bring your history with you or not. When you look to the next phase, what does that look like for you? What's important for you in that next phase of your life?
Relationships with people. I have traded an awful lot, and that's not a model that anybody should run and implement. I was 100% certain very early on that the amount of time that I worked and the velocity by which I did it was going to be the determining factor in the success that I had. Whether that is right or wrong, and Gary would tell you it's 100% wrong, whether it's right or wrong, that was my operating premise.
Yep.
My next chapter will be written in relationships because that, I think, is probably where the real wealth lies.
Like, that's it, right? Like that's the lesson. I was going to ask you, what would you go back and tell your 20-year-old self? But I think that's it.
My 20-year-old self would say, eat my 20-year-old
what would
self,
you go back and tell him?
I'd be like, wait a minute, no, I'm serious. Relationships are where the wealth are. You'd be like, yeah, get out of here. Are you kidding me? I literally just bought a Mercedes. I'm good on the relationship thing.
I'm going to get all the relationships from this car.
Well, and by the way, there's a group of people listening that are like, dude, I don't want to go that deep. I want to have an awesome sports car. I want to have an awesome house. I want to travel to Cabo once a month, and I'm good. And you do you, boo. I love that for you. For me, all the things that I thought I was going to acquire that were going to deliver this sense of peace or worth, I've obtained them. And I wake up to this day feeling incomplete. And I believe the missing piece is the depth of the relationships that I'm purposeful about and I allow others to have with me. And that's going to be my life's work moving forward.
I'm really excited for you for that because it's choosing to let that in and choosing to go after that is going to be such a worthwhile journey for you.
I really hope so.
It will. We're on that journey with you. Well, thank you, Jason. Thank you for letting us have an opportunity to unlock a little bit of Jason today. It's been quite an honor, and we're excited to bring this gift to our listeners. So,
I know. So much gold today.
So much gold. All right, Empire Builders, go out there and have an incredible week and build a big business, but don't forget to build that even bigger life.
Bye, guys.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.